Hey guys, what's going on? It's D. I just have a small request for everybody out there who's a listener of this podcast. If you enjoy listening to this podcast and you want to help support the show, you can go to patreon.com/the teamhouse. That link is in the description of the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to us on. What do you get for supporting us on Patreon? Great question. The only question. You get completely 100% ad-free audio. No more commercials annoying you, interrupting you, being a little bit louder than the media, like than what the podcast you're actually listening to. I've been trying to fix that for the last 7 months, and it's the most frustrating thing in the world. So I completely understand where you guys are coming from. Our Patreon starts at $5 a month. If you join the $5 a month part, you could get ad-free audio, ad-free video. You get access early to the audio of both the Team House and Eyes On, so you get both two for the price of one. And you help support the show. We're out here grinding every day. We're not a huge podcast, so we really appreciate the support. It really does go a long way. So it's patreon.com/theteamhouse to make it easy for you. That link is in the show notes on whatever platform you're listening to us. Thanks for the support, and thanks for checking out the show, guys. Very much appreciated. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Eyes on Geopolitics. I'm here with Mick Mulroy, Jason Lyons. A lot happening as usual. Do us a favor, like and subscribe. If you're listening to us on audio, rate it 5 stars. Subscribe there as well. And check out our Patreon. And check out Fogbow and Lobo. The links are all in the description if you're wondering. So big news. The UN has declared a famine in Gaza, backed by, I guess, the Integrated Food Security Phase clarification. The IPC confirmed on Friday that the famine has taken hold in Gaza, government encompassing Gaza City and the nearby areas, and warned it could extend to central and southern Gaza by late September. Obviously, a lot is happening there. The Hamas has accepted the June ceasefire offer. Israel is currently building up forces ready to go in to occupy the majority of Gaza. So it looks like they're kind of on the opposite ends of the spectrum here. Mick, what are you tracking with? First off, let's talk about the famine that was declared. There was a lot of back and forth actually going on social media saying how they're classifying it as, for them to classify it as a famine, it should be 30% of people are malnourished. It's actually 15%. That was refuted too. So there's a lot of disinformation and back and forth going on. So Mick, I know you know what's going on here. So clue us in.
Yes. So to present both sides, and you start doing it, D. So you've got the IPC, which is a UN-backed organization that does this, right? So this isn't like they just randomly decided that they would declare a famine. The phases that we talk about, and the 5th phase is the worst, is what they're saying we're in, at least for parts of Gaza. And there is no phase after that. Death is after that. So the concern, of course, is there's 500,000 people that the IPC says are currently in a famine. They predict that within a month, I believe, by the end of September, there'll be 640,000 Palestinians in this phase. And once people start dying, it increases exponentially, right? So it's the end of the rope, if you will. So a lot of concern about that, and we can touch on the plan for the full occupation of Gaza, but obviously that impacts the famine, right? It's going to be more difficult, even if there's an all-out effort to get people food. When there's full-on combat in Gaza City, it's going to be very difficult to get food to people, and you're going to have to relocate 900,000. So a huge concern. At its height, the UN had, I think, 400 food distribution points. Right now, there's 4, and they're all in the south. The flip side, if you will, and you already addressed it, is the Israelis say, well, most of these stats are coming from, the Ministry of Health in Gaza, which they believe is essentially run by Hamas. I don't know if it is or it isn't, but that's their position. And so they think the facts are skewed so that it's not actually, to your point, 30%, it's much less. So I don't know, even though we're not really much involved in Gaza anymore, but we certainly have been. And so we keep very close ties with the groups that do support folks in Gaza. So we do have, I think, more information than the average person on the situation. But I don't know which one's accurate. But unfortunately, we're going to find out, right? Because when people start dying, when children start dying of malnutrition, if they do, then there's your unfortunate proof that they were correct. So I think everybody should get behind the idea that we should not allow innocent civilians, period, but certainly not children, to die of starvation, especially when it's a man-made scenario. Whether that man, is Hamas, who obviously could care less about the civilians in Gaza, or the policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu at one time completely cutting off food, which of course compounds the problem even when you turn it back on, and then the very restricted nature of what's going on now. So again, I think unfortunately we're going to find out who's right in the next coming weeks if we start seeing a lot of deaths from starvation.
Yeah.
Nick, do you know? Sorry, D.
No, please.
Are these agencies able to calculate how much time and food it would take to get back above famine levels, like well above? Are they able to do that?
I think so. Yeah, Jay. I mean, they do this, and they've done it for decades. Unfortunately, the problem of famine has been a perpetual one. They have the science down. And it's a science not in the amount of food that you have available to people, but once you reach a certain phase, there's only certain foods you can eat. Unfortunately, if you're in the last phase, you can't just eat normal food, right? You can't just, it has to be very specific. It has to have the right amount of minerals and nutrition that can be digested. Like a steak, for example, can't be digested. So it's the type of food. It's the medicine that would allow, it's the rehydration, medical devices that would do that. But they're going to need to flood the zone to get it back. And there's also the issue of panic, right? If you know that there's a lot of food, you're like, it's not going to go away. You'll stand in line, right? You'll stand in line to get you and obviously your children food. But if you think there's only enough food for 10% of the people out there, and you're trying to get food for your kid, it quickly turns into survival of the fittest. You know what I mean? So it's having a lot of food so the population can come back from the brink of starvation and stabilize. And that's the question I think a lot of people are putting pressure on the Israeli government. Right?
What's the military, strategic military advantage of starving people?
Well, I mean, if you just look at it from a purely military perspective, it's population movement, right? If you want a population to move from one place to another, you could shoot at them.
Which they're doing that too.
Well, you can't just shoot at civilians. It's against the law of armed conflict. Or you can starve them, which is also against the law of armed conflict. In fact, it's one of the main impetuses of all the conventions that we collectively agreed to after World War II. Or you can just simply not starve them, but put food in another area so they have to leave to go there. I don't know if, maybe we have some international lawyers in the audience, but I don't know if that is also included in what's online. In other words, you're feeding them, but you're feeding them in a way that you're manipulating. And the big concern, and I don't know if this is going to be the case, is that's how they're going to get the civilians out of Gaza City. They
For
just won't
the
allow any
occupation.
food or water to turn it off if there's even running water.
Honestly,
in Gaza City.
like I'm obviously clearly against this whole thing, and if the case was, hey, we're gonna open up 400 aid sites and flood it with food and medicine, and keep not attack the civilians that are going to get the food and medicine down in the south, I would probably be more okay with a full occupation of Gaza City than if they did something like that. But I mean, it doesn't seem like they will. At least that doesn't look to be on the cards. And it's just it's a tragedy of epic proportions. And I know Hamas is dirty and they're fucking scumbags and they should be killed. But there's also like 1.9 million other people there that just luck of the draw, got unlucky with where they were born. And I don't know how the U.S. can continue to support this, gonna be frank. And I know, we're never gonna send troops there, nor should we, but outside of contractors. But I don't know why we need to give them. I think military aid should be contingent on people not starving to death.
Certainly make the argument. And the U.S., of course, and will remain a big partner of Israel. I don't understand necessarily why they would want to use these techniques. I mean, I think the world's with them, to your point. Hamas is a despotic terrorist organization and, should be hunted down and killed, essentially. And they've shown no interest in... They spent all the money that they could have spent on infrastructure to support the citizens of Gaza, in schools, hospitals. And I was talking to a priest friend of mine the other day, and he'd been there, and he's like, when they turned it over, they had cafes and hospitals. Israel, that is. They had fields of agriculture and all that. And instead of building on that, Hamas spent $1 billion on a tunnel system for themselves, right? All for the purposes of eventually attacking Israel, right? Because you don't need a tunnel if you're not going to attack Israel. What's the point? $1 billion worth of tunnel systems, right? So, I think they would have most of the goodwill that counts in the world if they would not use civilian population in the controlling of food as part of their tactics here. But I think a lot of the Israelis agree with that.
Yeah, we have seen a ton of protests, hundreds of thousands of people. I think one was 500,000 people calling to ceasefire, get the hostages back, and so it does seem like the tide is turning, at least with the populace in Israel, in terms of let's just get this over with. It's I mean, listen, I don't like Hamas either, right? I think Israel and Mossad should go after them one by one strategically. What they're clearly very good at, right? That's what they excel in. In terms of some of that $1 billion came from Israel too, right? It wasn't, and Netanyahu's government was funneling money through Qatar to Hamas before October 7th.
I mean, I don't know all the details, but
sure.
A lot of the money came from Iran.
Yeah.
Right? Iran provided 90% of the support militarily to Hamas.
And I have a hypothetical question, right? Let's say we're living in Brooklyn and Long Island and Queens, and the rest of the boroughs are, control who comes in and out. It's been like that for a long time. Wouldn't you set up a tunnel network too, in terms of being able to have a little bit more freedom of movement and not being tracked by Israel 24/7? I don't know if I agree completely with the open air prison, what people call, but if there ever is one in the world, I mean, it was as close to it as possible. I don't know if I completely agree with that, because there was freedom, relative freedom of movement before October 7th, but their coastline was shut down. I don't know how I would react. I'm trying to put myself in that position and how I would react and how I would act, and it's just tough for me. And again, I think the Hamas leadership and stuff should get clipped. I think they really should. I mean, but I would not be surprised as well if like Hamas's numbers are staying steady because, you know, there's a bunch of young kids being radicalized, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if recruitment was like not in the dumps for Hamas or Islamic Jihad or any of the jihadi groups.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you could make an argument that when it was turned over by Israel when they left, if you would have had a technocratic government that focused on the population itself and not, you know, perpetuating a terrorist war against Israel, think of the different place it would have been in, right? And if they never attacked Israel, there'd be incredible pressure on Israel right now to have a Palestinian state, right? If they had avocado fields and orange fields and kids were going to school and they were prospering and they weren't attacking Israel, what would be the argument against a Palestinian state, even in Israel? Now, go try to talk about a two-state solution in Israel, because they're going to say, oh, we tried it. And guess who they elected? Hamas. Guess what they did? October 7th. And ultimately, it doesn't matter the pressure of the international community. If Israel doesn't agree to it, we're not going to have a Palestinian state, I don't think. So ultimately, it depends on what the people want. Do they want their children to be educated and have a future? Or do they want their children to, you know, join the jihad and go kill an Israeli? And we're further away from like even talking about a two-state solution now than we probably have been in our lifetime. And I think that's, you know, on the doorstep of Hamas, personally.
Also, like, what would a two-state solution actually look like? The West Bank is being settled.
They're dividing up the West Bank and they're settling it. So if you look at, you know, and I'm not a historian, like actual historian, I've obviously followed it. Every time there's been an offer to Palestinians and Israelis, when the Palestinians turned it down, the offer next time has gotten less. From the beginning, it was like 50-50 land split, right? So it's, I mean, some people that support the two-state solution basically, you know, probably coined the term that the Palestinians have never missed an opportunity to miss an opportunity. And now look where we are.
Jay, got anything? I have one more question for Mick and you.
No, go ahead, man.
So you know, Mick, you were a military advisor, a DOD advisor, high up, CIA, SIS, Jay, you two, you guys were in the rooms. If you were advising a prime minister or president about what's going on with what's happening now in Gaza, what would be the broad strategic, obviously not street to street tactics, but like what would be the broad strategic plan in your eyes? I know it's a thought exercise, obviously, but like, you know,
mean as Israelis?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you could already tell where I'd be on the restriction of food. I wouldn't use that at all. I'd accept the fact that Hamas is going to steal some food, right? So, as you said, there's 2 million people living in Gaza. Hamas started at 30,000. I think the AIDF is probably reduced to below 10,000, my guess. Yes, they're going to recruit more, but they'll recruit more because of the conditions, right? So I would relook at that entirely, and not, because you got to keep, you know, not only international goodwill, but internal, I think. I mean, it's a democracy, right? So I don't think the Israelis are good with the conditions the way they are, and to the extent that Israel's responsible for it. And then there really has to be a militarily achievable set of objectives. I mean, politicians say stuff like, we're going to annihilate, destroy Hamas. Okay, got it. So the U.S., the most significant superpower in the world, not just conventionally, but unconventionally, fought for 20 years to try to destroy Al-Qaeda, ISIS, which came from Al-Qaeda, and all the other smaller groups. They're still there, right? Because you can't just beat a philosophy with brute force. So I would set, and I'm sure the IDF would appreciate this, reasonable militarily objectives. I think they think they've already met them. And then you have an exit plan. And it can't be tied to your own political, fortunes or misfortunes. It's just what you need to do to ensure that Gaza will never be a safe haven for Hamas and never mount a threat to the state of Israel.
Yeah, that sounds way more measured. Jay, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that was just said, and I would also add that if we're going to bring it down just a little bit more, one of the big reasons for this all starting after the October 7th attack was to get these, the hostages back. So why not, let's just say we do take Gaza City and, we do occupy the country. Once we've done that, as Mick stated, allow the food in, because now once you're feeding people, they'll be more apt to be like, okay, my kids are fed. I know where these hostages are, or I know a little bit of information. Now I'd be more willing to give that to the IDF. Those sorts of things. I think right now, as tragic as it is, that the hostages are kind of an afterthought, because the Palestinians and Hamas, they're not going to give up that information while people are starving, and the IDF and Israel is not going to is not necessarily pushing that narrative to get them back, because people have other things on their mind, taking Gaza City or whatever it is. So I think most, as we discussed earlier, the average Israeli citizen wants those hostages back. That's what's foremost on their mind. As bad as it sounds to say, they don't care about. Most of them don't care about the Palestinian, the average Palestinian, because they want their people back, which I completely understand. Well, that's probably not going to happen until you stabilize that area and allow food in. Then people will be more apt to give up that information. Hamas would probably, although they really don't care either. But how can they argue negotiating for the release of the hostages if their own people are now being fed and the things that they're saying are not happening are happening? So it behooves Israel to allow those things to happen, food to come in, water, electricity, and all that stuff. Now you've taken every argument away from Hamas, and you can work on getting them.
Yep. Those are great points. That's exactly what I would propose. And on the intel side, I would basically put the word out from Mossad and Shin Bet. If you're guarding one of these hostages and you turn them over, you're going to be a wealthy person. Just would do it that way, right? How much time and effort do we spend negotiating when you could just pay people off? And during a rescue attempt, I would tell him, if you keep the person alive and he tells us when we recover him, that thanks to this guy who did not shoot me and kept me alive during the raid, same thing.
Yeah.
It's just, maybe it's just the way the intel, system works. And I'd be like, okay, Hamas leaders, you can leave Gaza. And I'd spend the rest of my existence tracking them down. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There's smart ways to do stuff. And there's that, and I'm not saying they're not doing all this stuff. I actually don't know. So I would just, I'm looking at it as a blank slate. So I don't know what they are and aren't doing.
Yeah, I had a question, like when we were in Iraq, right? From what I've heard from like folks that were there, whether they were Army intelligence or CIA, whatever, is like we set up easy mechanisms for people to come in with tips and stuff like that, right? Is that being done, do you think, in Gaza? Or because like Andy's mentioned it before, they go in, they clear, they get out, they go back in and clear again. Like they don't really kind of plant a flag, for lack of a better, like just to simplify for my dumb brain. Like, so do they set that up where like they can have, like they have a forward operating base, and if somebody has information, they come and they debrief or they try and figure out what they're trying to say,
There's got to be a way to do that. I mean, they do have a fob. What Andy's talking about is their straight infantry forces aren't trained to clear and hold. They're basically clear and then retract back in the fob. I mean, I don't have any reason to say that Andy's not right about that. If that's the case, it causes a lot of issues, right? And like when we did Fallujah, we took it.
Yeah.
We didn't go take it and retract and let them take it back. And I mean, you don't have to be a regular warfare expert to know that's not very effective. But there's also an internal pressure that's going to mount because they had to call 60,000 reservists up for the Gaza City offensive, and the rest of, the 25% or whatever they don't occupy, plus retain 20,000 reservists that would have been getting off active duty now. It's huge pressure. I mean, they rely on reservists, which is okay unless you're in a multi-year war on multi-fronts. Then they essentially, take your whole population, not only disrupt their lives for years, and I know a lot of Israelis, some wanted to be like doctors and lawyers and such. They kind of gave it up. Take 3 years out of a young person's life, and it changes the dynamic. And it's very disruptive to the economy, right? People who would have finished college and gone to the tech industry and created other jobs and all that, they're all bartenders in Tel Aviv when they're not reservists. And nothing wrong with being a bartender in Tel Aviv. I love Tel Aviv. Sure. Right? But if you had an aspiration to go to finish, just like here, right? And all of a sudden you were told, you're going to take 3 years of your life. And so only thing they can do.
Go fight in a war too, right? Like see combat. Bloody, how does that affect them in that way?
Huge PTSD issues.
Yeah. And D, to answer your question from an intel standpoint, there are, I would assume Israel is good at intel. So there are mechanisms in place, and they're called walk-ins, where people have information. And the traditional walk-in is usually like an embassy or something like that. Someone will say, hey, I have information. But I'm sure that Israel has mechanisms in place in Gaza for people to approach. Probably not IDF because they don't want to get shot, but someone to say, hey, I have information that I want to pass on. And plus probably, I'm sure before, if I'm, remember correctly, before October 7th, Israel had networks in place, I'm sure, and, people that they could call on and say, hey, you live here. What the hell is going on? So, I don't know if they're there anymore. Either they've left or they're dead, more than likely. But at the very least, there's probably mechanisms in place because I'm sure that Israeli intelligence is not just sitting back, sitting on their hands. I'm sure they're in Gaza talking to people. So there's mechanism in place.
You guys think they're relying a little bit too much on SIGINT stuff?
I don't know. I mean, the good intelligence is everything, right? It's not, you don't like, let's do this, not that. You use it all.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have, better human or better SIGINT. And then a lot of SIGINT is actually human enabled, right? So it's, especially in today's, intelligence world, it's all intermingled, right? And you need the whole picture. And for example, SIGINT is very effective unless they think you're listening to them, and then they can turn it entirely around on you, right? And run basically an operation where you think what is being said is accurate when they just want you to think that, right? So it's a challenge.
The tricky business intel, huh? Go ahead, Jay.
Look at what happened on Iran with before the U.S. We used our bunker busters. When Israel was attacking Iran, there's that conversation between Israeli intelligence and that Iranian general, and they were telling him, you have 20 hours to get out. So I'm sure that Israel again has contacts within Hamas that they're talking to, and back channel discussions, and they're getting some of the information that they need. But the problem is when I'm not saying, and I'm not advocating for keeping them alive, but when you kill the people who would talk to you and give you the information, then there's nobody left to talk to. So now you have nothing but a military option. So, but I'm sure that there are people who are considering that.
And I'm watching a series right now, as you might guess, called Rebellion. It's about the Irish Easter Rising in 1914, and then the actual successful, Michael Collins led 1920, right? So one of their main efforts in intel side was to get the list of the informants, right? And then there's a string of assassinations by the 12 disciples, right? Fascinating. But one of the parts now, and if you guys have seen it, is this one of the ladies that works for the castle, right? So the Brits, she's about to lose her out of wedlock child. It's going to be sold. And so the IRA figures that out and they leverage it essentially to keep her from losing her child if she can. So intel is not a pretty business, right? It's not a pretty business at all, but it has major impact if done correctly. And Collins, before he became the ultimate leader of the rebellion, was the intel guy.
I got one more thing about like the reservists. You mentioned 60K being called up plus the 20K that were supposed to rotate back or staying on. A couple of weeks ago, the chief of staff of the IDF came out and said they would need 200,000. So is that number, the 60K that are being called up, and call it 80 with the 20 that are staying, is that like kind of negotiated a little bit? And like, I'm assuming Netanyahu are thinking about like, oh shit, maybe I should call up a little bit less so like I don't piss off as many people, right? Like, you know, it's the same thing we had when like Obama came into office, right? And he wanted to get out of Iraq, but he wanted to like kind of surge a little bit in Afghanistan, and they were trying to come together on like the number of troops that they were going to send there, right? And you know, the generals want 250,000, right? Like they want as many people as possible, but like then you look at the political side of it, and they ended up at a number, I don't remember, 100K or whatever it was. Is that what's happening in terms of how many reservists they're calling up? Like, is there political consideration being thought into it? It has to. I'm assuming it has to be.
I think there's about 5 divisions in Gaza right now. I don't know how many that is total, but maybe 200,000 to the entire thing on a rotational basis. But some people believe, and we'll find out, that this whole plan is basically to put pressure on Hamas to accept an agreement that Israel wants, right? So this is long buildup to this, and it's believed that most Hamas that are remaining are in Gaza City, right? So this is very important to them. So it may be, and it's like a long lead up time, like October 7th, on the anniversary is supposed to be the date that it like fully kicks off. So hopefully, whether it's the intent or not, and we all know what we know, as you brought in the lead up, the Hamas has accepted an agreement from June, they say. Mm-hmm. So we still got to wait to see if Israel accepts it. Hopefully they do, since they agreed with it in June. Mm-hmm. It would be better if Hamas actually accepted agreements when offered, right? Because generally they expire. The hell with that. If Israel accepted it then, it seems like they could accept it now. They could get hostages back. There's around 20. And that's, I don't know. It's a sad thing to say, but it's likely that 20 is going to be diminished every week because of the conditions. So the quicker they can do that, and there's been reports that the IDF senior leadership have told the Prime Minister's office, we pretty much accomplished everything that you've told us to. Yeah. So, like, what is the purpose of continuing the conflict at the expense of potentially the remaining living hostages and the expense of more Israeli soldiers who are undoubtedly going to be killed or seriously injured in the Gaza City offensive? So hopefully they can get to it.
Yeah. Man. It seems like a nightmare. All right. If you guys are good on that, you guys have anything else to add to like Israel, Gaza? All right, so we'll push through. Obviously we had the big summit last week on Friday. Putin met with Trump in Alaska. Glaze session occurred. Nothing came out of it. Then on Monday we had Zelensky and a gaggle of European leaders, UK, France, Germany, NATO, and the other guys, Italy, Finland, a ton of people in the White House. I am assuming figuring out next steps, what the points would be. Obviously, the biggest point is a security guarantee what that looks like. Is it actually going to be Article 5 like or not? Trump indicated initially that Putin was open to having some sort of NATO-like or Article 5-like security guarantee, but since then, it seems like they've been walking that back. Lavrov, who looks like a melted candle, he said that no way we want Western troops in there or NATO troops in Ukraine and stuff like that. It seems like they want their security to guarantee to be up to Russia. Just trust us, bro. We got this. Don't worry. Just trust me. That doesn't seem like that. Oh, it shouldn't go anywhere, and it should be an absolute non-starter. What are you guys looking at with this? Tell me, teach me.
So, I mean, if you look at what Russia's asking for, let's just start with it. They want the territory they've already taken unlawfully. They want territory that they don't own and haven't taken to be given to them. They want Ukraine to disarm. Literally disarm. They don't want any European troops in Ukraine. They want Chinese. I don't know if the Chinese would agree to that insanity. They don't want Ukraine to ever be able to join NATO. It's so maximalist, it's absurd. And we should call it as that. We should just like, we're not talking about it. This is the U.S. came up with a plan, and I think Lieutenant General Kellogg is going back soon. I'm not saying he was the one that came up with the whole plan, but he's the one that presented it. It sounds like him, which is what the Europeans are trying to do, which is the Ukrainians accept certain facts. Yes, the Russians are on this territory. It's unlikely we'll be able to get it back. Doesn't mean they concede it legally. They just say it is what it is, right? They can always seek legal recourse to try to get their territory back. They freeze the lines. They bring in tens of thousands of European forces, which they've already signed on to, the Coalition of the Willing, and that there is a blanket security guarantee similar to Article 5, and there's no permanent ban on Ukraine joining NATO. If you look at Finland gave away 10% of its territory to Soviet Union. They agreed to stay neutral, and then now they're NATO. Yeah. Like there's a model to do, but the U.S. and Europe has to stand firm and stop just being pushed around. I mean, we had the summit. They said that he's okay with Article 5. Now they're saying they're not, right? We had a meeting at the White House, brought all these, allies of ours who all talked about sending their own forces in. And now, as you just said, Russia's not good with it. Well, isn't just a one-sided thing where we have to adjust every time they change their mind. This is the plan. And if you don't do it, we're going to impose secondary sanctions. Sanctions don't actually work when you don't actually trade with the country. We don't trade with Russia. So sanctions are kind of irrelevant. Has to be secondary sanctions. Frozen assets. There's about $9 billion in the United States, about $325 billion in Europe.
That's got to be getting some interest too. You know what I mean? Like that's got to be going up. So
tranches to let Ukraine buy F-16s, ATACMS, Patriots, whatever they think they need. Right? It all has to be in a row. And then I think Europe should start training and planning for this, deployment if there's a ceasefire. And they need to start talking about what is the red line. That's a risky thing to say, but are they going to allow Ukraine to be taken in total? But the U.S. and the Europeans, in my opinion, need to start pushing back harshly, at least diplomatically and militarily, right? So if they're buying $30 billion a month from Russian frozen assets, that's a lot of material. They need it. So if we're just going to go with show having meetings and let Russia just delay, I think we're making a mistake.
Something else too, I think needs to be discussed is if Ukraine cedes that what Russia's already taken, what about the people that are the Ukrainians that are in that territory? Are they going to be allowed to come out? Of their own free will? That's something that needs to be considered.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, ultimately, the Ukrainians have to pass a referendum. I mean, what if, I mean, you could use all the analogies, but say half of the country, or actually, it's a fifth of the country was occupied by a foreign invader. Are you going to be willing to not only vote to give your terrain up, but your people?
Yeah. Yep.
Or is part of that going to be you have to, if we agree, you have to pay to resettle all these people in Ukraine and rehouse them? It's complicated.
Yeah.
That's why there needs to be a ceasefire before the negotiations start, or they're just going to keep fighting. Because even if they had a goodwill, which I don't think they do, but even if they did, it would still take months to go through all of the issues and all the kids that they stole. I mean, that's insane.
Yeah. 30,000.
Who steals kids?
And the German chancellor brought that up too in his remarks in like the Oval Office or wherever they were, speaking with Donald Trump, and the rest of the European leaders. He actually was pretty firm in it, which was good. The Italian, listen, Europe's saying the right things, and I think Europe's down to do it. I mean, are they sitting in rooms together with their advisors and stuff like that, or even, prime minister to prime minister saying, we might have to go this solo without the U.S.?
I think so.
I'm sure.
Right?
Yeah,
like
I'm sure that's happening. Yeah.
Now, I'm not even just saying like troops and stuff. I'm saying just generally, like, let's pressure Putin to like come to terms with us and Zelensky, and the U.S. is going to do whatever the U.S. is going to do. This administration, makes it kind of clear that they're kind of a little bit easy on Putin. Just that Lavrov triggers me bad. Like rocking this CCP sweater, like, bro, get fucking lost, bro.
Yeah.
Get out of here, you fucking ogre. So what do you think happens next? There was some talk that possibly Zelensky and Putin would be meeting at the end of August. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. It seems to have cooled off. And at the same time, Russia is pounding Ukraine with like drones, a ton of drones. I think like 500 hit one night, and they're not really discerning from military targets. They're hitting civilian targets. What do we see happening next here?
Well, I mean, Russia's going to make incremental gains, but it's important to point out there is no real path to victory for Russia unless everybody just stops supporting it. Right? So look how long we're into it now. 3 years and 200 something days.
Yeah. It's closing in on 3.5 years.
Yeah. So what are we going to do collectively? If we keep supporting them, and of course right now the U.S. is supporting them with funds that were approved in the last administration. So are we going to just let it run out? And if we are, why are we even involved in this? To your point, D, Europeans should take the lead. They should start releasing the funds there in their banks. And they should start planning and preparing to be the main, support for Ukraine. I mean, if we've abdicated that role, there you go.
Yeah. Getting what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but then, I think Ukraine will clearly fight to the end. I don't see them giving up ever, or they would have done it already. Right? I mean, they've lost how many people? So then now they're going to give up? That's not going to happen. And I think there's going to have to be a reckoning with the support network for Russia. There's going to be a lot of pressure put, especially if we can get secondary sanctions. But I don't know why there's 85 plus senators that support the Graham Blumenthal bill. Secondary sanctions would really affect Russia's ability.
Is there a problem in the House, or do they not need the House to pass this?
I think it'd pass the House.
It's veto-proof. Then let's do it, man. Like, what are they so scared of, dude? The midterms are far away enough where you could fucking make this happen, so you're politically kind of covered. I mean, if Trump goes after you, maybe you're not as politically covered and stuff like that, but just do it. Put up or shut up, man. These guys like being... Go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just saying the polls I've seen shows America's all about supporting Ukraine. Still are, both sides of the aisle. And this is secondary sanctions. Like, you won't get secondary sanctions if you stop buying oil for Russia. And we're tariffing everybody anyway.
Right. Mm-hmm. If Canada could catch a smack, so could Russia. You know what I mean? And or the people that buy oil from Russia. Interesting, like you said, like how the Ukrainians, not willing to give up, right? And when Kyiv was encircled or semi-encircled back in 22, Andy Milburn was there, and he said, he's like, a city of 3 million people, 25% of them stayed. That's 750,000 people who were down to fucking fight. So yeah, this isn't a country that's going to roll over, because they would have rolled over already. And they're fucking democratic, by the way, guys. Just FYI. Like, it's so insane to me how this is even like a thing where like we can't get on the same page, or not even get on the same page, but we can't get the American president to do what most fucking normal, sane people would do. Sorry, I said it.
Once you allow this, I mean, if your main effort is countering China, right, and you abandon Ukraine to Russia, you ain't
coming to Taiwan's fate. Yeah, you're not coming to Taiwan's defense.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Totally. It doesn't matter how many aircraft carriers you send to the Indo-Pacific. If they don't believe you're willing to push back on them in any reasonable or any significant way. You see what I mean? And if you just abandon Ukraine, then they're like, well, that's how you support your allies and partners. And it's not just restricted to Taiwan, who says that they don't try to seize other islands of other countries, and right? They just say, well, the international community will say a lot, so we'll get a lot of harsh tweets. They don't care. Why would the Chinese Communist Party care if the Western world sends negative tweets?
No, yeah. People in China are not going to see it anyway. So,
see it anyway. I don't care.
Yeah.
They just, it's already...
And also, what does that say to like your historic allies of 80 years, Japan and South Korea and stuff like that? It's like, hey, fuck you guys. You're on your own.
Yeah.
And we do see Japan, starting to like go beyond the 1% of like their GDP to defense and stuff. Yeah, they have to do it. I mean, so I know they game this out, but let's say European countries, the 7 or so that came to the White House, were like, all right, we're going to send about 150,000 troops to Ukraine. We're going to fucking bring them in and put it to Russia to be like, you want to try, like, is that something that you I guess, like, what plays out if that were to happen? You think Russia actually hits us or them?
You mean before there's a ceasefire?
Before there's a ceasefire, they just start bringing people in.
I mean, there'd be a lot of, wringing of hands and clutching of pearls when even talking about it. But we have one country that up until the night of the invasion was saying they were going to do it. And they invaded a country and now deliberately targeting civilians. When is Europe going to wake up and say, part of it they are, right? They're spending up to 5% on their own defense. That's great. They've already agreed to be the coalition of the willing sub after the ceasefire. That's what I'm saying. What's their red line? Why aren't they planning it and actually training right now so Russia can know?
Yeah.
Are they going to let them take Kyiv? And maybe they don't want to make this public, but you got to plan for it. Hopefully they're willing to, because if not, wow, the next country is going to go. You're just showing Putin that it was, if he can take Ukraine, I don't think he can actually take Ukraine, but just under your hypothetical, if he come close to it, are the Europeans willing to actually draw the line, send forces in saying, we're not fighting you unless you fight us. Like, this is our line. So you're not getting Kyiv, but if you attack us, obviously we're going to defend ourselves. And if you're not willing to do that, are you willing to watch Ukraine go down? And then where are you going to make your stand? The next Moldova? Where's the next country you're going to make your stand? And he's not going to believe you will, because you just showed him you won't. So from his perspective, he doesn't care about international law or morals or ethics. Why not take another country?
And I think we, as in the U.S., is going to be a big litmus test for that. Like, so let's just say Europe does send in those 125,000. Russia's going to look past Europe to us to try to gauge what our reaction would be to it. Did we protest the fact that they sent those troops in there? Because now that's a crack, that's a fissure in NATO. And even beyond that, are we saying, okay, those 125,000 are there, Putin, so you touch any of them, now we're going to get involved. And if we stay silent, or if we turn on Europe and start scolding them for sending them in, well, I don't see them. I don't put it past Putin to say, take advantage of it, and if you want to hit them. So
yep.
I think we're the litmus
There's
test.
an interesting point that I talked to somebody the other day about. The Article 5 part of NATO isn't as actually ironclad as you think it is. At least that's what this person was.
It's like the language general.
The language is general. Like, we come to each other's defense, but it doesn't specify what that means.
Mm.
You know what I mean? I should do more research on it, but this person was saying it could be a strongly written declaration all the way up to like, we're fighting right, elbow to elbow with you. I don't know that there's, I don't know that it is ironclad as, I'll just speak for myself, thought it was. Like, you attack Poland, we're in. Like, we're starting to mobilize forces, we're going over there. I think that's what people think. I think that's what we hope. But I don't know, like, for example, and if they deploy as France, Germany, the UK,
Is
not
it
as
technically
NATO.
NATO? Yeah.
Right? And if they go, hey, look, we're not going to, somebody has to ask for Article 5, like we did after 9/11. And all these people fought next to us for 20 years.
What's interesting is, like, would they take the precedent of what happened after 9/11 and how it was invoked and other countries came and helped us, right? Like, they sent troops, they sent equipment, intelligence sharing, the whole, they didn't send aircraft carriers and stuff because most of them don't have them, but they did send people to come and fight and die.
They did for us after 9/11, including in Iraq, which had nothing to do with 9/11.
Yeah. That's an interesting, oh God, what is it worth? Is it worth the paper that it's written on, or is not,
And they sent folks to Syria, I believe. And we're still fighting in Syria. So hats off to the team, particularly JSOC out in Syria, that just took out the next ISIS. I think he was going to be the ISIS leader.
Yeah.
We kind of forget that it's still going on. Those guys are out there.
Still hooking and jabbing.
Absolutely. The Delta guys are just still crushing it every day. Well past when most of the global war on terror is kind of, over.
What do you guys make on, we'll wrap this up obviously, because this was a bit in the news, but as a quick hit, where like we're pulling folks out of Iraq. Did you see that a little bit? But what do you make of that in terms of being able to fight ISIS and things to that nature?
I like maintaining presence everywhere I'm allowed to be frank. Projecting force means you actually have to project force, not just a theory that everything can come from the States. We're not actively involved in combat. I understand that part for sure. I don't want American soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, all over the world fighting. But especially in Iraq, we're in advisory capacity. So we're on fortified bases owned by the Iraqis, and we're just in advising capacity. But they're their own sovereign country, and if they have decided they no longer want us, then I also don't think we should force ourselves to stay. In other words, just saying we're not leaving. So I think that's the scenario we're in now, although there's probably plenty in this administration that don't want us there anyway. So it might be, you don't want us here? Fine, we're out of here. We could move to Syria. And it's not a complete, it's just the military members that are not part of the embassy team. But I think it's in our interest to stay.
We don't have a JSOC element or a ground branch element there. We must have. I mean, what are we doing?
So I don't know. I wouldn't say, but
Of course, yes.
The
Disclaimer.
There's two different things, right? So JSOC is going to fall under the military rules. Ground, it's different authority. Special activity center, ground.
Title 10, Title 50, right? Is that
yeah.
Okay.
I would hope that we push to keep certainly JSOC folks and the Title 50 folks. It's in their interest, right? They have a big neighbor who likes to meddle in their stuff all the time, who's built armed forces in Iraq that they essentially control or strongly influence to the point.
Talking about Iran.
Yes, Iran. Yeah. So the PMCs, the Hashd al-Shabi, all those units, which are still huge problems, and there's big. I mean, we don't cover it as much anymore in the media, but a group of these Iran-backed controlled groups just took over a government building because they wanted to. And so it's a big issue. What I'm saying is it's in the government of Iraq's interest to have some kind of counterbalance to Iran. Because if we're gone, they obviously can't really push back significantly enough. So hopefully they see that. And we should keep our mission in Syria. It also helps us counter Iran in Syria. And of course, we want to declare the end of the global war on terror, but the enemy gets a vote. One giant explosion in Times Square that emanated from Syria or Afghanistan. You know how this works.
Yeah.
You were in New York on 9/11. That's when Americans start pulling out the maps. Going, who did what? Right?
You start talking about manifest destiny and shit, Yeah.
It's not over just because we say it's over. And thank goodness for the hard work of the intel community and the military for being out there doing what they're doing in a place like Syria.
All right, I'm done. I got enough. I'm spent. I don't know about you guys. I'm ready for a nap. All good? Yeah. I want everyone to do us a favor and like and subscribe. Patreon.com/theteamhouse. Check out the guys' links down in the description. Fogbow, Lobo, Jason Lyons. His links are down in the description. You want to connect with him on LinkedIn or connect with him on Bluesky or whatever. He's down there. Andy Milburn, of course. He's working out right now. He's working on his biceps. Yeah, as always, guys, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, gents. See you next week.
Take care, gents.
Hey guys, I want to tell all of you today about a new newsletter that we're launching that encompasses both the Team House podcast, the Eyes On podcast, and the High Side news outlet, which I run with Sean Naylor. The newsletter is going to be once a week. It's going to come into your inbox, and you're going to get the most current podcasts on Eyes On and the Team House and whatever's topical or current on the high side. So it's another way for us to get the information out to you, as social media algorithms are pretty iffy and you never really know what you're going to get. So this is a once a week email. It'll slide into your inbox and it will have, the greatest hits of that week.
It's really good, man. I'm checking it out.
The website for it is teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. teamhousepodcast.kit.com/join. You go there and you enter into your email list, or you enter your email into the little thing on the website, and you're good to go. And that'll be it. So we really appreciate your support and hope you'll consider signing up.
Where's the link?
The link will also be down in the description if you're looking for it there.
And that's teamhousepodcast.kit, KIT, Kilo India Tango.com /join.